Hello, and welcome to the News Network. Today I'll be talking to Evan Budzar about the Iraq War. He was an eyewitness in this war, so we will be getting his opinion and experiences while living through this war. So Evan, where were you during the time of the war?
Well, the Iraq War started around March in 2003, and I was actually living there at the time. I was living there with my family, and I remember how traumatic it was.
Wow, I bet that was very scary. I'm sorry you had to experience all of that. What do you think were the causes of this war? Where do you think it came from?
Well, I truly believe it was because of Iraq's stockpile of weapons. They were building mass destruction weapons, which was restricted at the time, and that put everybody on edge. The United States ended up invading Iraq because of this. Everyone was so worried about it, so the tension got worse and worse until it just snapped. George Bush was the president of the United States at the time when the war happened.
I agree. That's very interesting. I could tell this could be a sensitive topic for some because Iraq was building all these weapons. No one understood the reasoning and the uncertainty that can be worrying for sure. What was it like being in Iraq at this time? You said you lived in Iraq during the war. So how were the conditions of everyday life?
Man, it was honestly very traumatic and horrific to see. Obviously, it was a war, and there were many tragedies and lives lost due to the fighting. Living through a war is a hard thing, and it definitely makes you not take anything for granted, because it truly shows just how fast everything can be taken away from you, just like that. I had lots of family members and friends die in the war, and living a normal, everyday life got very different after it started.
I can imagine that everyday life is definitely can change drastically for you and your family. I bet a lot of people learned the same lesson that you did because it can be very scary having to live through all the things that happen during those scary times. Do you think that it was justified when the United States invaded? I know people have their opinions, but I want to hear your point of view as someone living there at a time.
Well, man, honestly, I could sympathize with both sides of the war. I understand completely why the United States did it, but also coming from a citizen of Iraq, war is never a good thing for the citizens who live in a war zone. Again, I understand their reasonings of why they did it, and I understand their anxiety and fear. So I agree with them, but I also know how it feels to suffer the pain and destruction that a war brings.
Yes, I agree, and I see your perspective for sure. It can be a hard thing, but I also get where the United States was coming from because they were just worried. The citizens of the United States were worried about their own safety because of the loads of weapons that Iraq was building up. When did the war end?
It ended in 2011, and I believe that it was in the month of December. Everyone was so glad when it was finally over because it felt like it had been forever. The war went on for 8 years, which is a very long time for all the pain everyone went through. It was like a reward when everything was over, but there was still a lot of rebuilding and helping to do so that everyone could get back to their normal, everyday life.
I agree with you. That was a very long war. I can only imagine the relief and the other citizens must have felt once the war had ended. What do you think were some of the worst impacts the Iraq war had on your country?
I mean, man, that's a really loaded question, so this will be a very long response. I would definitely say it hurt our economy, it hurt our infrastructure, and it hurt our strength. Because of the war, no one wanted to travel to our country anymore, and understandably so. This made a really negative impact on tourism and the money that it used to bring in prior to the war. To this day, our country is not a desirable place for people to visit due to the uncertain security. It's really sad. Small businesses were negatively impacted, and many had to close or flee to another country to make a living. Our country had some beautiful buildings that were destroyed during the war, and many places were reduced to rubble and now look unrecognizable. Many of our big business buildings and roads were destroyed. The infrastructure is slowly starting to build back, but it still has a long way to go. Lastly, The war made us look and feel weak. We endured a lot, but didn't gain anything from 8 years of hell that we went through. We only gained frustration, heartache, and a long load of recovery.
Well, I thank you, Evan, for your time.
Thank you for speaking with me.
You have a good one. Yes.